My mother found my bank statement showing $134,000. Now she's house shopping for my brother with my money. I'm Harper, and today's story will absolutely blow your mind. The day my mother decided my savings were family property changed everything. I'm 29 years old, and I've always had what I thought was a solid relationship with my mother, Catherine. She's 51, and while she can be a bit controlling at times, I never imagined she'd cross the line like this. My brother Jake is 31, and we grew up in a modest household in suburban Phoenix where money was always tight, but we never lacked the essentials. For context, I've been working in digital marketing since graduating from Arizona State 6 years ago. I've lived incredibly frugally, think ramen noodles and thrift store clothes, saved every penny I could, and made some smart cryptocurrency investments before the big boom. Last year, I finally bought myself a small 2-bedroom townhouse in Tempe. Nothing fancy, but it's mine, and I'm incredibly proud of it. Yesterday started like any other Tuesday. Mom came over to help me organize some tax documents since she used to work as a bookkeeper. I stepped out to grab us some Chipotle for lunch, leaving her in my home office. When I returned with our burrito bowls, she was sitting at my desk with this strange expression, a mixture of shock and something I couldn't quite place. "Harper," she said, holding up my Wells Fargo statement with trembling hands, "why didn't you tell me you had this much money?" My stomach dropped like a stone. I'd left the statement in a manila folder on my desk, never thinking she'd go through my personal documents. The statement clearly showed my savings account balance, $134,000. Money I'd carefully accumulated over 6 years of sacrifice, smart investing, and living like a college student while working full-time. "Mom, that's private financial information," I said, trying to keep my voice steady while my heart pounded. "You shouldn't be looking at that." She waved her hand dismissively like I was being ridiculous. "Private from your own mother? Don't be absurd, Harper, but honey, this is excessive. You're hoarding money while your brother struggles to make rent in that tiny apartment every month." I stood there, Chipotle bag in hand, completely blindsided. Jake works as a graphic designer, and yes, his freelance income isn't consistent, but he's never asked me for help and seems to manage his finances reasonably well. He lives in a studio apartment in downtown Phoenix and drives a beat-up Honda Civic, but he's never complained. "Mom, that money is for my future," I explained, setting down our lunch. "It's for investments, retirement, emergencies." She actually laughed, but it wasn't a pleasant sound. "You already have a house, Harper. What emergency could you possibly need $134,000 for?" Meanwhile, Jake throws away $900 every month on rent because he can't afford a down payment. That's when everything went sideways. The conversation devolved from there faster than I could have imagined. Mom accused me of being selfish, of forgetting my roots, of thinking I was better than my family. She said that since I obviously didn't need all that money, I should help Jake buy a house instead of hoarding wealth like some corporate executive. I tried explaining that my savings were carefully planned, that I had investment strategies, that just because I had money didn't mean I was obligated to buy my brother a house. But she wouldn't hear any of it. She left in a huff, but not before delivering this parting shot. "I raised you better than this. Harper, family takes care of family. You have more than enough to share." Now I'm sitting here feeling violated and guilty at the same time. Part of me wonders if she's right. Do I have an obligation to help Jake because I've been fortunate? But another part of me is absolutely furious that she went through my private documents and is now trying to guilt me into spending my hard-earned savings. I haven't talked to Jake yet. I don't even know if he knows about this whole situation. My phone has been buzzing non-stop with texts from Mom about doing the right thing and not being greedy. 2 weeks later. I can't believe I'm back here with an update this soon, but the situation has escalated beyond anything I could have imagined. After reading your comments, I decided to try having a calm, rational conversation with my mother. I called her 3 days after our initial confrontation and suggested we meet for coffee at our usual spot, Starbucks, to discuss boundaries and privacy. She agreed, seeming surprisingly reasonable on the phone. I should have known better. I walked into the Starbucks on Mill Avenue expecting to find just my mother. Instead, I found not only Catherine, but also my brother Jake and my Aunt Linda, Mom's younger sister. It was a full-scale intervention. They'd even chosen a corner table where I couldn't easily escape. "Harper," my mother began before I could even sit down with my vanilla latte. "We're here because we love you and we're concerned about the path you're taking." I almost laughed out loud at the intervention-style setup. The path of saving money responsibly? I wanted to say, but I kept quiet. Jake looked uncomfortable but spoke up. "Harper, I didn't know about your savings until Mom told me. I want you to know I never asked for this conversation." But Mom interjected immediately. "You shouldn't have to ask. That's what family does. We help each other without being asked." Aunt Linda chimed in with stories about how our grandparents always helped their children, how family wealth should be shared, how our generation had lost sight of traditional family values. It was a coordinated character assassination disguised as concern. The revelation that absolutely floored me came when Mom pulled out her iPhone and showed me screenshots of Zillow listings. "I've been doing some research," she said proudly. "There are several perfect houses in Jake's price range. 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, good neighborhoods in Chandler and Gilbert. With your $134,000, you could put down 20% on a $400,000 house and still have money left over." She'd been house hunting for my brother with my money. The audacity was breathtaking. "Mom," I said, trying to control my rising anger, "you can't spend money that isn't yours." "It's not spending, it's investing in family," she countered smoothly. "Jake pays $900 a month in rent to some landlord that could be going toward building equity in a house. You'd be helping him create wealth." Jake finally spoke up more forcefully. "Mom, stop. This is embarrassing. Harper doesn't owe me a house." But Catherine was on a roll. She'd created an entire financial plan. She'd calculated mortgage payments, property taxes, insurance costs. Even researched the best neighborhoods for young professionals. She'd somehow obtained detailed information about my finances, not just my account balance, but my investment portfolio, my 401k contributions, everything. "How did you get all this information?" I demanded, feeling sick to my stomach. She looked sheepish for the first time. "You left your MacBook open when you went to the bathroom during dinner last week. I just took some photos with my phone to better understand your financial situation." I felt physically ill. She had deliberately snooped through my computer and photographed my private financial information. This was beyond a boundary violation. It was a complete betrayal of trust. I stood up to leave, but she grabbed my wrist. "Harper, I've already told Jake he can start looking seriously at houses. Don't embarrass our family by backing out now." "Backing out of what?" I pulled my arm away. "I never agreed to anything." The conversation ended with me walking out while my mother called after me about disappointment and selfishness. Other Starbucks customers were staring and I felt humiliated. Jake texted me later that evening apologizing profusely. He said he tried to tell Mom this whole thing was inappropriate, but she'd overruled him and insisted on the intervention. The worst part? Mom has been telling our extended family about my wealth and how I'm refusing to help my struggling brother. I've gotten messages from cousins and aunts I haven't spoken to in years. Some are supportive, others are suggesting I should share my blessings and remember where I came from. I've changed all my passwords, enabled 2-factor authentication on everything, and put a freeze on my credit reports. I'm also seriously considering switching from Wells Fargo to a completely different bank. The violation of privacy is what gets me most. She went through my computer, photographed my financial information, and is now using it to try to manipulate me into buying my brother a house. The audacity is mind-blowing. I'm at a complete loss. How did wanting to save money for my future turn into this full-scale family war? And what's she going to do next? I thought things couldn't get worse after my last update. I was completely wrong. 3 weeks ago, I received a phone call from an unknown Phoenix number. It was a real estate agent named Robert Martinez calling to confirm our appointment to view houses for my brother. Apparently, my mother had given him my contact information as the financial backer for Jake's house purchase. "I'm sorry, there's been a misunderstanding," I told him. "I'm not buying anyone a house." Robert was professional but confused. "But Catherine said you'd already agreed to provide the down payment and co-sign the mortgage. We have showings scheduled all day this Saturday in Chandler." I explained the situation briefly, apologized for wasting his time, and thought that would be the end of it. It wasn't. That Saturday morning, my phone rang at 7:30 a.m. It was my mother, absolutely furious. "Where are you?" she demanded. "Robert said you canceled. Jake took the day off from his freelance work for these house showings." "Mom, I told you repeatedly that I'm not buying Jake a house. The fact that you scheduled showings anyway proves you're not listening to me." "Not listening, Harper. I'm trying to help you do the right thing. Do you know how embarrassed I was when Robert called to say you'd canceled?" I told Jake this was finally happening. The call ended with her hanging up on me. But the real shock came the following Monday. I received an email from Robert Martinez with the subject line, "Documentation needed for mortgage pre-approval." Attached were partially completed mortgage applications with my information filled in. My full name, social security number, employer information, and salary details. The co-borrower section listed Jake's information. My mother had attempted to start a mortgage application using my personal information without my consent. I immediately called Robert and explained that this was fraudulent, that I had never agreed to any of this, and that he needed to destroy all documentation containing my information. He was mortified and assured me he would handle it immediately and report the incident to his broker. Then I called my mother, barely able to contain my rage. "You tried to commit fraud," I said without any preamble. "You gave someone my social security number and tried to apply for a mortgage in my name." "It's not fraud," she said defensively. "I was just getting the paperwork started to save time. You'd have to sign the final documents eventually anyway." "Mom, that's literally identity theft. I could press charges against you." There was dead silence on the line before she said, "You would have your own mother arrested over helping your brother get a house." I consulted with a lawyer friend who advised me to send a formal cease and desist letter to my mother, which I did through certified mail. The letter stated that any further attempts to use my personal information without consent would result in immediate legal action. The family explosion was immediate and nuclear. My phone blew up with calls and texts from relatives. Some were appalled at Mom's actions. Others thought I was overreacting to family trying to help family. My Uncle Richard called to say I was tearing the family apart over pieces of paper. I had to explain to him that those pieces of paper were legal documents that could have destroyed my credit and financial future. Jake called me crying, saying he'd had no idea about the mortgage application and felt mortified. He genuinely thought they were just looking at houses to get an idea of the Phoenix housing market. He's been staying with friends because the tension at home with our mother has become unbearable. The most surreal part is that my mother genuinely doesn't understand what she did wrong. In her mind, she was just being a proactive mother trying to help her children succeed. The fact that it involved fraud and identity theft doesn't seem to register with her at all. I've had to take additional security measures. I've placed fraud alerts with all 3 credit bureaus, opened a P.O. box for sensitive mail, and even installed a Ring doorbell system at my townhouse after she mentioned to Aunt Linda that she still had a spare key from when I first moved in. But the story gets worse. Last week, I discovered she had created a GoFundMe campaign titled "Help Jake Buy His First Home," where she detailed my excessive wealth and refusal to help my struggling brother. She'd raised $847 before I reported it to GoFundMe and had it taken down for fraudulent claims. Then came the phone call that changed everything. It was a Tuesday afternoon when I received a text from Jake. "Please don't hate me. I just found out what Mom did. I'm so sorry. I tried to stop her." Before I could respond, my Ring doorbell chimed through the camera. I saw my mother standing at my front door with a man in a business suit holding a thick folder. I didn't answer, but I watched as they had an animated conversation on my porch for nearly 10 minutes before finally leaving. An hour later, I received a call from yet another unknown number. Against my better judgment, I answered, "Miss Thompson, this is David Chun from Desert Realty Group. I'm calling about the generous gift you're providing for your brother's home purchase. I have the contracts here, but I need to verify some information with you." My blood ran cold. "What contracts?" I asked. "The purchase agreement for 2847 Desert Willow Drive in Gilbert. Your mother, Catherine, said you'd agreed to provide the $89,000 down payment and closing costs. We just need your signature and proof of funds to proceed." I took a deep breath, trying to stay calm. "Mr. Chun, I'm afraid you've been seriously misled. I have never agreed to purchase a house or provide any money for a house purchase. Any contracts you have are completely fraudulent." There was a long, uncomfortable pause. "But we're supposed to close in 10 days. Your brother has already given notice at his apartment." My heart sank. "Jake gave notice?" "That's what your mother told me. She said it was all arranged, that you were just busy with work and she was handling all the logistics as a surprise." I explained the situation as professionally as I could manage. Mr. Chun was understanding but extremely concerned about the legal implications. He said he'd need to consult with his broker immediately and would likely have to void the contract. I immediately called Jake. He was sobbing before I even spoke. "Hopper, I swear I didn't know about any of this. Mom told me you changed your mind and wanted to surprise me with a house. She said you felt terrible about our fight and this was your way of apologizing. I only gave notice at my apartment because she said the house purchase was a done deal and you were excited about it." My mother had manipulated my brother into a terrible situation. Jake had less than 2 weeks to find new housing because he believed our mother's elaborate lies. She had essentially made him homeless with her deception. The confrontation with my mother that evening was the most explosive argument of my life. I drove to my parents' house in Scottsdale, and for the first time ever, I truly lost my temper and yelled at her. "You made Jake homeless," I screamed. "You lied to him, to real estate agents, to everyone." She tried to deflect the blame. "If you had just done the right thing from the beginning, none of this would have happened." "There is no right thing here, Mom," I shouted back. "It's my money, mine. Not yours to promise, not yours to spend, not yours to make plans with." "Family helps family," she screamed in response. "Your grandfather would be ashamed of the selfish person you've become. Grandpa worked for everything he had and never demanded handouts from his children." I snapped. "He would be disgusted by what you've done." The argument continued for nearly an hour until my father, who had been largely silent throughout this entire ordeal, finally spoke up. "Catherine, enough," he said quietly but firmly. "You've lost your mind over this money. You're destroying our family." She turned on him then, accusing him of taking my side, of not caring about Jake's future, of being a weak father who didn't understand family obligations. But Dad held firm. "Our daughter saved that money through years of hard work. She earned every penny of it. It belongs to her, period. End of discussion." The aftermath was swift and devastating. Jake found a new apartment with help from his friends, though the sudden move cost him significantly in deposits and moving expenses. I offered to help with those costs, the only money I've willingly offered throughout this entire nightmare, which he gratefully accepted. My mother has been telling anyone who will listen that I'm a greedy daughter who let her brother become homeless rather than share her fortune. Most of our family has seen through her manipulation by now, especially after learning about the attempted fraud and the fake house purchase. But last week I received one final surprise that showed just how far she'd fallen. A certified letter arrived with my mother's distinctive handwriting. Inside was an itemized invoice for raising me, listing everything from diapers to college contributions totaling $52,847. Her attached note said, "This was less than half of what you actually owe me. and that I could pay the remainder by buying Jake a house like a decent daughter should. I actually laughed out loud. The complete absurdity of it all finally hit me. My mother had become so consumed by my savings that she destroyed her relationships with both her children, attempted multiple forms of fraud, and now wanted to retroactively charge me for my own childhood. I've kept that letter. My lawyer says it could be useful evidence if she escalates further, though I pray it doesn't come to that. As of today, I haven't spoken to my mother in 7 weeks. Jake and I have grown much closer through this ordeal. He's repeatedly apologized for our mother's behavior and has started seeing a therapist to deal with the manipulation and guilt he's experienced. This is my final update, and I genuinely hope it's the last chapter of this nightmare. It's been 4 months since my mother tried to buy Jake a house with my money, and 4 months since she nearly destroyed our family over $134,000. That was never hers to claim. The ending is both heartbreaking and somewhat hopeful. Last month, I received a call from my father. He sounded exhausted, defeated. "Harper, your mother had an incident at the bank yesterday." My stomach dropped. "What kind of incident?" "She tried to access your old checking account from when you were in college. When they told her it had been closed for years, she had a complete breakdown. Security had to escort her out, and the bank manager called me. It turns out my mother had been spiraling deeper into her obsession with my money. She'd created elaborate fantasies about what she could do with it, how she could help not just Jake, but our entire extended family. She'd spent hours calculating how to distribute my excess wealth among relatives who were struggling. The bank incident was a wake-up call for my father. He gave her an ultimatum: seek professional help immediately or face divorce after 32 years of marriage. Surprisingly, she chose therapy. My mother was diagnosed with adjustment disorder with severe anxiety triggered by financial stress she'd been hiding from our family. Apparently, she and Dad had been struggling with debt from some bad stock investments. The discovery of my savings had triggered something desperate in her. A belief that all their financial problems could be solved if I would just share my good fortune. This doesn't excuse her behavior, but it does explain the sudden personality change. The woman who went through my bank statements and committed fraud wasn't the mother who raised me. She was someone consumed by financial desperation and anxiety. She's been in therapy for 8 weeks now. Dad says there's been genuine progress, though she still struggles to fully accept responsibility for her actions. Jake and I have grown incredibly close through this ordeal. He's thriving in his new apartment and has started a side business creating social media graphics for small businesses to supplement his income. He jokes that Mom's madness taught him the importance of true financial independence. 3 weeks ago, I received a letter from my mother. A real letter, not another invoice or demand. It was short but significant. "Harper, I'm sorry. I lost myself in fear and desperation. Your money was never mine to claim or redistribute. I'm working to understand why I felt entitled to what you earned through your own hard work. I hope someday you can forgive me, though I understand if you can't. Love, Mom." It's a start. I'm not ready to resume contact yet, but I appreciated the acknowledgement. My own therapist says forgiveness is a process, not a single event. The money that started this whole mess, it's still there, quietly growing. I've actually increased my savings rate, partly out of spite, and partly because this experience taught me the true value of financial security. I've also learned to be much more private about my finances. Only my accountant and financial advisor know my real net worth now.